I was clocking in and clocking off. It was almost robotic. And I felt that I was serving work rather than work serving me. So my conditioning was, there is no off switch. You keep going. And I lost myself within that. It felt foggy. I felt constantly exhausted. You know, I was having to have naps in the afternoon. And I think looking back, it was just my system, my nervous system, just telling me, look, stop. This is your warning. You need to have a reset.
Well, I mean, it's very well known that the body keeps the score.
There's a lot of people made redundant at Credit Suisse.
Were you pleased about that?
I think there's some panic.
Yeah.
Lots of responsibilities with kids, costs, London lifestyle. I started to really get to know who I was.
Yeah.
The fog started to clear. Now there was a lot of pressure going on, but also I felt mainly that it was all going to be okay in the end. And it was really important to actually go in and find who I was, which I totally lost.
Hello and welcome to A Bunch of Therapists with me, Michaela McCarthy.
And me, Dipti Solanki, bringing you insights and stories from inside the therapy room.
This week we have James Gellatley, who worked in finance, worked in the city, got burnt out, and then retrained and transformed his life.
Yeah, I found it quite an inspiring and amazing story to listen to, so can't wait to share it with everyone.
Yeah, I think people resonate.
Hi James, welcome to A Bunch of Therapists. Really pleased to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Perhaps we can start by just exploring what was it that brought you to therapy in the first place?
I think the journey for me to therapy started probably back in 2018. I was in the city. I'd been in the city from around 98, so 20 years. And things were starting to not feel quite right. So in that kind of build up, as years rolled by, I think I had a burnout into around COVID times.
So what was your work in the city? You said 20 years in the city.
So I started as a graduate in 1998 and I ended up on the trade floor.
Oh, I see.
I started on the sales side and I moved up and into like managing a sales team and was at various places. And yeah, it was an early start, long day. It was great at the beginning, but I think after a while I ended up at a place that wasn't in a particularly great, in a great place. And that started to take its toll.
Yeah.
Going into the city, you start early, right?
Yeah.
What sort of time would you be starting?
I mean, my day was, the alarm would go off around 5:50. I tried to get my exercise done, so I would cycle into the city, which was great. So I'd get my cycle stuff on, I'd have my suit and everything in a locker at work, and I could park my bike in the basement of work. So I would cycle into work, fast. I'd be on the desk by 6:45, hand over from Asia, see what's going on in the news and see how the US closed the night before. So and then you'd be on the phone by 7:30, speaking to clients, what's going on in the world, what's shifting economically, what's Trump saying, all these different things. So you'd be on the phone all day. You might have 2 minutes to rush out, get a sandwich, eat that on the desk, continue. And then things would start to wind down around about 5:30, 6 o'clock. You wrap everything up, hand it over to the US, maybe go out with the clients, maybe go home and see the kids, that kind of stuff. So it was a kind of long day. So I would say probably from start to finish, it was a 14-hour day, 5 days a week. So probably up at 5, back by 7.
It's long.
It is, yeah.
So I think there's something very specific about working on the trading floor as well, and the pressures that go with that. And I know from the outside, a lot of people are aware of the perks and the benefits and actually the glamour of it. But there's that thing called Sniper's Alley as well that a lot of traders talk about when they hit their 40s and 50s because how they work. It'd be great to understand more of the nuance of what it was that you experienced in terms of mental health and burnout, if there was any, during your time there.
I think for me personally, it was just I think life in general building up. So from my experience was the years, the evolving of having children, the long hours, it takes its toll. How, if I just think here, I think life split into many chapters. You have your childhood, you go to school, maybe some travel. Some people go to university, and there's all these short little chapters. And then when you get to your early 20s, you then get into this long chapter of 20, 25 years. So something that the body's not being used to.
Yeah.
So my own personal experience was probably just learning and wisdom as you come. It was kind of, it became foggy almost.
Right.
And it was almost, I would say, after 10, 15 years, it became like an out of body experience. And I was clocking in and clocking off. It was almost robotic. And I felt that I was serving work rather than work serving me. Whereas before there'd been the excitement and the mini chapters of building. So I think that longevity for me is what led to the burnout and the lack of self-awareness that I had of where I was going. So I would say we all have conditioning. And I mean, I've got a very happy childhood and upbringing, and I think our parents try and do the best. But for me, it was like a work hard, play hard, go to 120%. So my conditioning was there is no off switch. You keep going. So my survival instinct was to kind of keep going within that zone. And I lost myself within that. And it's only now when I look back at the part of me, which was a people pleaser, that started to take its toll.
So you didn't say no?
I didn't say no, Michaela, and there was nothing left in the tank for me. I think it was going at 120%. What I've learned in hindsight now is actually going at 80% was enough. My 80% would have been more than enough for that, and that would have left 20% in the tank for myself to be a better version of myself. And I think going at 120%, that 2020 crash for me personally, was purely my body just almost coming to that kind of crunch. And I think getting COVID very early on, and actually getting long COVID, probably highlighted that. And that was my kind of moment to kind of look back and think, okay, something doesn't feel right here. What is going on?
So do you think that burnout was the precursor to getting long COVID?
I think long COVID exposed the burnout.
Okay.
And it just kind of highlighted.
What did burnout feel like for you?
Almost, I think it got to the point where I was happy for things to sabotage and get to a point to actually find a way out, which I didn't kind of quite know the answers. It felt foggy. I felt constantly exhausted. And I think now looking at the kind of long COVID and, I was having to have naps in the afternoon. And I think looking back, it was just my system, my nervous system, just telling me, look, stop. This is your warning. You need to have a reset.
Well, I mean, it's very well known that the body keeps the score.
Absolutely.
And I think, denial is very, very powerful. And if you're surrounded by people who are quite driven in an environment, I imagine that's really driven, that you will become part of that. And then, as you say, there's no switch to switch off.
I think that's a good summary.
And so what happens? People get sick.
So when you were struggling and experiencing that burnout, did you speak to any of your colleagues, tell your bosses?
I actually didn't. I wanted to keep it private. I felt that my armor would have been compromised and I wouldn't have been the strong sales trader person in the city. So I didn't tell my partner too much detail at work. I didn't really share too much information with clients because, I felt I would be under threat. I'd be compromised if I was damaged goods and I wasn't 100% myself. I could be vulnerable. I did share, to be fair, with my direct manager in New York, and he was very understanding. But I also did feel the need to say to him, can we just keep it between the two of us and kind of private? Because, I guess I felt vulnerable and at threat. If I was slightly compromised, then I might not be the best person for that job.
Yeah, it's all built on such a house of cards, that whole thing, isn't it? Yeah, and we don't want people to see us as not being capable, perhaps.
100%.
But that's the false self.
Totally true. Yeah, the masks
The mask.
that we wear.
know.
So you contracted COVID.
Yeah.
And how long did that last before you realised this is long COVID and that diagnosis?
Yeah, I got COVID right at the beginning.
Okay.
When I was actually out in Italy, France in that March, remember when we had that news that it was kind of come over to the Alps? I'd actually happened to be there.
Right.
I was over there with a group and we just got back as everything was being shut down. And the majority of us happened to have it. And actually the COVID, I mean, it felt bizarre actually. And kind of that's why the conspiracy theory now that it came out of a lab, I felt I had actually been almost kind of drugged somehow. It was a very kind of synthetic kind of feeling. But I got COVID. It wasn't outrageously bad. And I actually tried to push myself out of it. Started running a lot and started training. So, which was totally the wrong thing to do.
Well, you do what you know, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're a driven person.
Get up
you
and
go,
fight.
yeah.
And, go
Survival.
for it. And that was not a good idea because then the long COVID came and I just totally crashed. I was totally exhausted, sleeping, wanting to sleep all the time, didn't have any energy at all.
Was it scary for you? Because being a driven person and having, you know, fatigue and no energy.
I mean, totally. When I had COVID, when I actually got diagnosed, I actually ended up in hospital for a night.
Oh, so scary.
So they actually kicked me out because I didn't need the ventilator or anything, but I had loads of complications. Like I was out of breath, I was exhausted, heart arrhythmias, all sorts of things that weren't kind of right. So there was definitely all of some of the symptoms that people had. But through that 6 months, I think it was a very unusual time, wasn't it? None of us, we were in survival instinct. You can't really see what the future holds. And so you just kind of get on and shift through it. And then it just started to shift. And that was when I was having some therapy through work, which was great because they had the benefit system there. That was the awareness. But I was at a place that was slowly sinking. I was at a Swiss bank that actually sunk and got taken over. So the story was
UBS, right?
Yeah. I was at Credit Suisse, got taken over by UBS in 2023. And in that whole movement, I didn't get taken on into UBS. There was a lot of people made redundant at Credit Suisse.
Were you pleased about that?
I think there's some panic.
Yeah.
Lots of responsibilities with kids, costs, London lifestyle or the city. So initially there was definitely some panic, but also some relief that I was going to have a chance to get to know who I was and reflect. So it kind of felt inevitable,
Do you think that relief would have been there had you not been engaging with the therapy beforehand?
Good question. I think everything evolves as part of the journey. I think I'd worked out that I needed to have the therapy and the reflection and the time to kind of just step out. Life was so busy. I was serving clients, I was serving kids. The people pleaser was totally on fire. And what I liked was that 1 hour a week just to step out. It was like a self-care. And I realised I had a lack of self-care.
Yeah.
And there's a saying that to put your oxygen mask on first so you can then put it on others. And I think, to go back to your question, I think it was just part of the whole process that had come to me. But to go back to the stigma and the fact the benefit system was in place and it wasn't, and it was post-COVID, it was great that we were able to do that because I think 20 years ago, that would have not been an option because it wouldn't have been accepted.
Can I just ask, because I'm listening to you and I think, your first initial thought when you were not the chosen one, getting made redundant, you are the chosen one, but not the chosen one to stay. Did you feel anything in that?
Did I feel
before
any
you
rejection?
had time to sort of process and reflect and look at the positives? Because that comes sort of after a little bit. And some people go, yeah, great, they kicked me out, great, I've got time. Other people are going,
well, you've given so much of yourself, haven't you?
Mixed feelings. I'd done it for 25 years, started in 98. Wasn't necessarily in a position where, okay, I'm retiring and leaving the city. I got forced out. I genuinely, I think, initially felt relieved because it was going to force me to find another path and change tack.
So you were challenged from the outside rather than you challenge yourself.
Yeah, and I think there is something in our human nature to be down at the bottom of a hole, really in the deep hole. I think there's something very humanistic for us to actually be challenged like that and really get into a dark place. Well, it is for me personally to kind of then test the resilience and actually find a way to fight back. I think there's something that I say sabotage, but I was relieved to get to that point because I needed a change to understand who I was. It didn't feel right. It felt foggy and something needed to shift.
But I'm a real believer that we don't learn from our successes, we learn from our failures. And even though you feel at that time you're failing, but if you go into it and then you start coming out of it and then you're able to reflect, that's why it happened. It's almost don't fear the failure when it comes.
Absolutely.
Just step into it.
If you're enjoying A Bunch of Therapists, why not like, subscribe and share with a friend?
I started to really get to know who I was.
Yeah.
It was part of the journey. It was really enlightening. Almost there was some moments of joy within seeing it. The fog started to clear. Now there was a lot of pressure going on. I had a lot of commitments with schooling, kids. And yes, there was some panic, but also I felt mainly that it was all going to be okay in the end. I trusted, there's partly trusted the universe, just go with the flow. And it just felt it was moving the right way. And it was really important to actually go in and find who I was, which I totally lost, and understand all those different parts.
But I think when you're in a situation like that and you're open, that you actually then trust the other, which is not tangible. It's here. You can call it the process, the universe. It's you have to. And people go, what do you mean by that? What does that mean, this universe? And what does it mean, the process, the grey, let's say call it the grey area if you want to.
I would say for a number of years, I can't give you the exact date, but it was probably a good chunk of 10 years before I left the city. I didn't know who self was, the self.
Right.
And I think this was part of the journey whereby we have a holistic part of ourselves, and we have our trauma and we have our parts, our people pleasers. When it goes back to Eric Byrne, when the adult comes in, the inner adult comes in, and all these different parts start to trust the self, that's when the fog starts to lift. And actually it brings you back to the moment. And it sounds rather spiritual and stuff, but there was that kind of finding of myself, probably from about 2023. The journey had started before then, but I started to see myself come through the door.
Yeah. And it's curious, isn't it? Because everything else that we have constructed over the years starts to fall away, break down, yet we start to emerge. And it's this real dichotomy of I'm finally starting to emerge and everything else is breaking down, but things are going to be okay.
Total. And there's peace in that. There was definitely, and I think those days, and there are dark days within the awareness. And what I've learned is, whether it's fear or anxiety, what we want to call it, you have to sit with those moments. And rather than shove them down, how, again, with the conditioning or the city or whatever it was, you just get on with it. I think when those days come in, what's really helped me is being able to sit in the fog and the mist and the fear and thinking about what are those parts? What are they saying? What do they want? What do they need? And then if you can sit with it, and I'm just going to say, this day will pass as well, like every other foggy day, you can then move into that courage and that movement forward. And that's what I found. And that's been with the self coming in, because you start trusting the universe, the journey, yourself and everything. And that's where the joy is, actually. That's where.
But you've got to step into that,
Yeah.
And some people think, I can't. It's too, the fear kicks in, and you think, well, just do it, because actually it's not as bad as you think it would be.
And I think if the fear kicks in, it's so strong. So if you're suppressing it and pushing it down, you make it stronger. If it's there, it's going to come up.
I mean, when listening to you, I'm just sitting here reflecting. some of my great moments, I'm an entrepreneur, but I kind of sit in it and then I can step out. But my best moment sometimes is just being quiet. I could be driving, I could be anywhere, but opportunities come my way. The more I push for it and fight for it, it doesn't. And then when I stop, there they come.
I think that's really beautiful what you say. And my experience of that is, I think once you go on this journey and you just take a step back and you don't force anything, you start finding yourself and your energy becomes authentic because there's an authenticity. And when you start vibrating in that authenticity, that's when the real shift starts to happen.
Yeah.
So how did you move into a different kind of work? I mean, what happened then? What?
Yeah, so the story, came out in October 2023. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Lots of people got made redundant from Credit Suisse. London got really hit hard. There's 10,000 people in London. The trade floor, I think 70-80% got let go. Some found other roles into other banks. Some got made redundant. Some made their journey. So for me, I didn't find anything else. It all kind of came to a crashing end. And it's okay, what next? Some people were doing masters or MBAs. And I was like thinking, that just doesn't feel right for me at all. And that's actually, so it's kind of looking around, what am I going to do? And that's when I found the Awareness Centre. Actually,
How did you find us then?
Well, actually, so
I'm always fascinated how people come to us. There's always a story.
Yeah, I think so. Therapy had come up and I just thought, is that something that I could shift into? Wasn't totally sure, but something was calling. And I think it was just a simple case of finding something that was face-to-face rather online. And there were lots of different options. I was in London. And I think when you go searching, you come up pretty, relatively straight away. But it's the word awareness, because that was what the journey I was on. And actually the Awareness Centre, that is the key word. That's what really pulled me in. So I found your level 3 introduction to counselling with the lead up, which is the kind of prelim to go on and do the kind of full course. And it just felt right. I joined in the March. It was over a 12-month period. I didn't realise it at the time, but what I needed was that kind of container with other people to sit every Friday for the day in my thoughts around theories and academics and like-minded people. And it was there that the kind of, part of that journey and transition happened. And it was
the way your face lights up when you talk about it is quite telling.
Yeah, it was really important. It was a real container and support network for me. I made some really good connections. We had to have therapy. I think it was 12 sessions.
Yeah, at the beginning.
So I went to find a therapist, and it turned out to be a psychosynthesis. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah,
which is a great
London Bridge.
Slightly unusual term, but it's a great modality. So I had a psychosynthesis therapist who was also a coach,
Right.
and it was this person that kind of led me into the psychosynthesis. Ended up via the Psychosynthesis Institute and the Psychosynthesis Coaching Limited Company, and they could follow this EMCC, and you do coaching the time. It's a kind of a similar course to what you do, 9 months, and you get an accreditation and everything. So finished my level 3. At the same time, I did this postgraduate certificate in psychosynthesis leadership coaching. And so I started doing coaching, building up my accreditation, and a number of things. I reached out to a number of different people, but of course I've been in financial services for 20 plus years. Simply went on a search and had a look who are the top financial services coaching companies in the city. A number of them came up, and one that came back that was particularly interesting was one called Hatwell. And Hatwell are a group of investment bankers and coaches who set up several years ago. And I reached out to the partner in London and just literally said, "Hi, I'm James, been in the city. This is my journey." And he said, "Oh, great, let's have a chat soon."
Brilliant.
And went from there. So connected with them, and I ended up getting a contract with them as an associate to kind of build in and start doing some coaching. And at the same time, I've been doing some stuff on the side with my own contacts and stuff as well. So it made sense to kind of go in, and my story is to kind of go into the trade floor, go into executives within banks that are perhaps lost their way, don't have their self-awareness, having problems within their teams, and do some kind of leadership and teams coaching with those individuals to kind of help them.
I think
forward.
it's needed in all teams, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, our first team is our family, and, we end up turning up at groups and we start behaving the way we did when we were in our family. And people do, don't they? They go back to their family and they're grown-ups, and then they start behaving as if they were a child. And you say, like, wow, And so I think we have this, and it's just be really developing your awareness, thinking, why am I behaving like this with this person?
It's that instinct. And I think we're all leaders of ourselves. I mean, you've hit something in that, and whether it's leadership within financial services, PR, or anything else, it's all about leadership of ourselves. And that is a kind of big thing. And it's what we bring back to the family, what we bring to the outside. So, and it's interesting. The more senior you go with the senior executive leadership, is a very lonely place when you're at the top. And some of these leaders really kind of lose their way. And, they're making kind of wrong decisions and things like that. So the kind of real work is kind of starting at that point. Are they listening? Are they bringing all of their team members in, and how that whole kind of holistic part works? So yeah, and I think it's right. It doesn't matter what industry it's in, but yeah, I think I speak the language of financial services and the trade floor language. That journey kind of and connection made sense.
But it can transfer into any industry where there's teams.
Absolutely
we
right.
depend on teams. And, if some teams don't feel heard, what is that about? What is it? Or what is it that they're not saying?
Often it can come down from the leaders if they're not making their teams feel safe. I mean, bullying is a strong word, but if someone's not in a good place at the top and they're bringing in the wrong energy, that kind of ricochets all the way down into the kind of whole team. So how
do you address that? It's a tough one, isn't it?
I think the leaders need to be open to being better versions of themselves, because sometimes these leaders, and it comes down to IQ versus EQ, or kind of emotional intelligence. Some of these people, certainly in the city, in the financial services industry, can be put into very senior positions because they've made a lot of money, because they have a high IQ,
but they're not ready.
Their communication skills are lacking, and they have low EQ. And that's where the problems really begin, because they could be frustrated or resentful because other people aren't at the same level as them. And I think it's almost bringing in EQ into these leaders, or changing the whole leadership altogether, so you have people with high emotional intelligence in the right positions, because they're the key to keeping the teams moving forward. And ultimately, productivity. It's all about productivity in whatever industry you're in,
sure.
and joy and balance and happiness. But if you've got the wrong people at the top, it affects productivity at the bottom, because people leave.
Yeah, but if you think about what you were saying, at the beginning, that you started in the 90s.
98.
Yeah, going in. Well, those sort of words, emotional intelligence, just wasn't used. It was quite, it's ruthless.
And it's good. We've had a real shift in inequality and kind of, benefits and all of that coming through. So there has been a real shift now, and it was long overdue within all industries. And it's almost becoming a trend to have a therapist or a coach. And we're almost moving, very much so in the States, we're kind of moving that way, where everyone has their own therapist and a coach. And I think we're shifting that way. And it's great that the younger generation are starting to kind of put that in place. And the benefit system is bringing in coaching and therapy as well.
So James, what does the future look like for you now then?
Well, actually, so how this story is evolving, last June, I actually got a call back from the city of someone that I'd been speaking to back in 2022, and someone had kind of moved on to another role, and they actually asked me if I'd like to go back in. And my initial reaction was one of absolutely not.
Okay.
Trauma response, burnout, protect myself. And they knocked again. And stuff. And then I thought, and I reflected in that interim, and I am planning to go back to the city. I'm in the midst of negotiations right now where contracts have come through. And the point is now I've been thinking, can I go back with awareness? Can I go back with rest and sleep? Can I go back with how can the job serve me rather than I just serve it? And can I go back and continue to do my coaching as well? And so that's something to be discussed. Can I help with coaching on the trade floor at the new place that I'm going to? You know,
you'd be so well placed to do that.
Yeah, just kind of help people
figure.
who are maybe lost a bit of gratitude and things. You know, there's a lot of things around the city at the moment whereby there was a big bonus culture. It's not been a good one, and where people are slightly ungrateful that they're maybe not having been paid what they should be paid, but having stepped out and going back in. I think people should have a lot of gratitude for what they have and actually put things in perspective. If they really want to leave. If they don't, then have a look within and kind of try and be your better self. So can I go back into the city, continue my coaching and actually continue both journeys?
Yeah. So for our viewers and listeners, if they were to take something from our conversation, what is it that you'd like them to know, remember?
What would be the message?
I think embracing self-awareness, sitting in the moment. I think what I've learnt in the last 5 years is certainly living in London. It's a very volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous place that we are, the VUCA world that people talk about. And I think if you can go in and get to know yourself, what that does is it brings you back to the here and now. And I think there's so much joy within the moment and the here and now. And that's once you kind of get to know yourself and yourself comes in.
And you close down the noise.
Close down the noise and you breathe and you have these moments that we're having now, the three of us. And that is right here, right now, that moment. And that's going to then be gone. And it's just getting to that point. And then everything slows down and it doesn't go so quickly. And I think with that, you know, the anxiety and the fear dissipates because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So I think that's what I've learned. And that's where the joy is.
Sounds brilliant.
I love that. Thank you, James. You've been a really great guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to A Bunch of Therapists with me, Michaela McCarthy, and Dipti Solanki.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to review, like, and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts. And do follow us on our socials. Until next time, see you soon.